Hi everybody, welcome again to another session of Yeshiva Classroom. We have a lot of interesting thoughts we want to try to give over, and this is our number. We'd love to hear from you, 516-295-4233. Give us a call, leave a message, whatever. Look, there's a lot to talk about today, and I want to go into Tanakh. I want to go into the Shema Yisrael prayer. There's a lot of things. And this sign that I'm holding up says, Hiskiyahu, son or father guilty. In other words, Hiskiyahu was a king of the lineage of David, and he was a very righteous king. Like many other kings, he was different in the aspect of his commitment to Torah and having the people learn and try to instill fear and awe of godliness and the keeping of the commandments. Like the Shema Yisrael prayer says, that the belief in one God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and also that we should pattern our lives according to the precepts of the Torah. That's a Shema Yisrael prayer. But we're going to go into Tanakh a little bit. Hiskiyahu was so righteous, unbelievably righteous, and he did not marry. So the prophet, there was a prophet, Isaiah, and in Hebrew his name is Yeshayahu. And Yeshayahu said, being you did not marry and give off offspring, your life is going to be shortened. So what happened? The king, Hiskiyahu, married. And he had a son, and his son's name was Manasseh. And he followed the precepts, and according to Yeshayahu, he did have a son. But the son turned out very irreligious and very hateful towards the God of Israel, and all the things that his father, Hiskiyahu, stood for. Manasseh, his son of Yeshayahu, was evil. Was very evil, and he followed the precepts of the prophet Isaiah. So we have something like that today. Even though your parents may be very righteous, still in all, we have seen where the child doesn't go in the same path as his parents traveled, and how do we ascribe that to? Every day in the davening we say a volazione, a deliverer will come to you, and he will redeem you, and the Spirit of God, till that time, the Spirit of God and the words I put in your mouth will remain with you from this time forevermore. Again, the Spirit of Evolution, look it up, Evolution. The Spirit of God will always be with you, as well as the words I put in your mouth. From this time, now, and forever, to your son, to you, your son, your son's son, your son's son's sons, to the third generation, it will continue. And somehow, when we have a new birth, the soul is not as strong as it is in other individuals. The soul, God breathed into the soul of man. God breathed, that's in Genesis. God breathes into the nostrils, the soul of man. Nostrils, interesting. And at the end, King Solomon wrote in Koheles, Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, verse 7, the soul returns to God who gave it. The soul returns to God who gave it. So it's going to be difficult for some people who don't have, or were not born, what should we call it, an aptitude or a gift from God in a very concrete or high form. It may be a smattering of the Spirit of God in that individual. And so that's how that's what happened to Hitzkiyahu. He had a son, but I'm sure he gave him all the opportunities to learn and to be righteous and to be God-fearing. Because like it says in Koheles, Ecclesiastes, what does it say over there? Chapter 12, the last pasuk in the book of Ecclesiastes. It says, Solomon's writing, the sum of the matter when everything is considered, the awe and fear of God and the observance of the commandments is all that matters. The awe and fear of God and the observance of the commandments is all that matters. So here we have Hitzkiyahu. He has a son that's gone off the way. And I'm sure he's given him all the best teachers. And he has spent time with his son, but he still went off the way. And that is what we have in the yeshivas today. But I want to speak a little bit about Tanakh and Kings, and even before that, Joshua. Because after the 5 books of Moses, Joshua wrote his book, which was a total of 14 years, and God in chapter 13 in Joshua, the book of Joshua, you should write these down to look them up. Look up these sentences. In chapter 13, I believe it's 7, chapter 13, verse 7, it says over there, God speaks to Joshua and says, you were charged to bringing out the land to the 12 tribes of Israel, to divide it into the 12 tribes. This is a picture of the land of Israel and the division of the tribes. So God says to him in Joshua, he says, you're getting old and you haven't divided the land up amongst all the tribes. And he says, we're going to take time out and divide the land and divide the land up, and we're going to stop the campaign. And that campaign didn't continue. But it is interesting to note that the portions that were not conquered and those evil people were not driven out was Gaza. And that is significant because you see, Joshua in that 14 years conquered and drove out many of the inhabitants especially up north, Yabin. King Yabin was a powerful king in the north, and he got all the people, the Gentiles around him, to fight Israel. Even though everyone knew that God fought for Israel, nevertheless, God hardened Yabin's heart, and he fought. The Jews don't start a fight. But being that Yabin fought against the Jews, even though he knew he couldn't win, because God hardened his heart, and therefore Joshua and his army defeated Yabin and took over the north in the Galilee. But we have one of the portions that was never given over to the tribes was Gaza, and where the Philistines lived. And because we didn't drive them out, we've had a great deal of anger and wars from those people. Shimshon, in English Samson, he fought against the Philistines. And even till this day, we have to fight against the inhabitants of Philistine, Gaza, Gerar, and it's interesting to note that I think now, because God hardened the heart of Hamas, we will now drive them out like the Torah says we should. Not that I'm giving you the land because you're so righteous. Look in chapter 9 in Deuteronomy. But the people are evil, and that's why God wanted them to be driven out of that holy land. He wanted them to be driven out. And now, because the Jews didn't do that, he hardened the heart of Hamas. How could they possibly win against Israel's army and with God backing them? But he hardened the heart of Hamas and Sinwar, and therefore the Jewish people had to fight. And now they will drive them out and fulfill that commandment that God told us. Now let's go into we're gonna come back to Hiskiyahu, but let's go into a little bit of Tanakh. Let's go into a little bit of Tanakh, the other books of the Bible, and I want to tell you that all what I'm telling you can be gotten from this Behold a People book. Behold a People by Rabbi Miller, and it will summarize all the high points of Tanakh. Trust me, if there's any favor that you could do for me, order Behold a People for yourself from Amazon and read the chapter on Judges, read the chapter on Samuel, read the chapter on Kings. Okay? It's Behold a People by Miller. So, what happened after the Jewish people came to Israel and stayed there and lived there and got most of the land under Moses and Joshua, and they divided it up. Then the people, the Jews, settled, and it says over there, everyone did what is right in his own eyes. It seems like anarchy. But you have to understand that the Jewish people were in the desert for 40 years. They had a yeshiva where they learned Torah. And what do you mean by Torah? The Torah that they got at Mount Sinai, it's not the written 5 books of Moses. It's the 10 Commandments, right? The 10 Commandments. You see Moshe coming down with the tablets in his hand. Eish das, a fiery law in his right hand. Yeminecha eish das. Yemin is right, and the weaker hand, it says, or the tefillin. We'll get into that. But the point I want to make out over here is that everyone did what was right in his own eyes. I mean, they were studying, they were learning all the halachas and everything. And they settled around the gardens and the houses, and everyone was like a rabbi. They knew for 40 years, they were in Yeshiva, they knew the Torah. But there were elements that surrounded them, the Gentile nations, where they taught, where they bore down and gave Israel problems and learning their culture. If you look in the book of Judges, look in the book of Judges, and you see that they went off the derech. They went off the way, and you have the subject which is written out of chronological order in Judges. Seal Micha. They took Micha's mother had a large sum of money, and what she did, she made a monument, so to speak, and she wanted her son Micha to keep this as a momentum to the victory that Hashem gave over the Egyptians. But it was construed as a piece of work that one should pray at, and Judaism is not allowed to have such a thing. But it was such a thing, and the many tribes were upset, but they let it ride until the Pelegish of Gibeah, another act in Judges, and this is talking about a Pelegish, a wife of a Levite that was traveling around, and he stayed over in Benjamin's territory, and the youth banged at his door. They wanted to commit homosexuality with him, and which they had learned from the Goyim. And what happened, that they got the Pelegish, the wife of the Levite, and they killed her, and he sent, the Levite sent pieces of this dead woman to the tribes of Israel and explained to them what had happened. Well, the Jews were livid. They formed an army, and they went to attack Benjamin, and they wanted to have a trial for those people that did such a dastardly act, and they went to war, and many thousands of people were killed in that war because they wanted to uphold the name of God, which they should have done in the Pesil Micha, the monument of Micha. Okay, we don't know when that those two incidences happened in Shoftim, but we do know that Shoftim was a place where the Jews settled, they lived, and they worked their gardens, and they learned their Torah. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes because they were under the tutelage of Moses for 40 years. So what happened? The Gentiles it gave them difficulties and giving them idolatry, which they took, and they became enslaved. And then who do we have? We're talking in the book of Judges. We have Eglon. He was a Gentile who conquered Israel, and the Jews prayed, and they wanted to get rid of him, and all of his kin and his army, and God sent Ehud, E-H-U-D, Ehud, and he killed Eglon. He killed Eglon, and there was peace, and there was a peace for a long time until it happened again, where the Jews went after idolatry, and they went away from the Torah, and not everybody, but a large part of them. And then so the Gentiles took over, and so the Jews prayed that we want our freedom back again, and God sent before Ehud there was Achaz ben Kenas, right? He was another shofet. So after Ehud, it was peace, and then they went again over to Gentile practices, and what we have was a devourer. Devourer sat under the palm tree and judged the people, and she had as a General Barak, and they conquered those people, those enemies that took over Israel. So that was one shofet, a judge. And then there was peace, and the same thing happened again. The Jews were chastised because they went after idolatry, and as a result, they were enslaved. And God said, Gideon, and he did exploits. It's in prose, easy reading how Gideon defeated the enemy, and then it went back again to the old practices, and there was Rabbi Millers, and then Yeftach. All these judges rescued the Jewish people after they went away. And then after a while, Samuel came on the scene, and Shmuel HaNavi, and he like his predecessor Elkanah, and his wife went around and made a circuit of all the different tribes, and they gave them chizuk and encouragement because they had drifted away. And now the people said, we want a king. We want a king like the other goyim. And God said, if they want it, I'm their king, but if they want to have a physical king, so be it. And so they got, so the first king was Shaul, and Shaul was not up to what he was supposed to be, transgressed, and so God gave him David HaMelech, and David's son Shlomo followed him, and after Shlomo was Aviyam, and after Aviyam was there's David, Shlomo, Rechavam comes there. Rechavam, Aviyam, right? And then Asa, Yehoshaphat, and Yehoram, Achashia. And there was a problem because the 10 tribes broke away under Yerovam ben Nevat, and they had their own lineage, which started out with Yerovam ben Nevat, Nasa, Basra, and Elam, Zimri, Omri, and Achav. These were all kings that made themselves a king through power and intrigue. And Achav tried. He married Jezebel, who was wicked, and the both of them tried to get the cities together, two countries together, and with Jezebel's daughter was Athaliah, also not good for the people, and what have you, is that there was a one survivor, Yehoel, and he gave birth to two kings, and Amaziah, Azariah, and Yotham, Achaz, and Hiskiyahu. Yotham, Achaz, and Hiskiyahu. And here we have Hiskiyahu, the righteous of the righteous, and he had a son that went away. And that's how we have today. We have in the yeshivas, we have in the day schools, the study says under Pew, PEW, a survey, many of the day school graduates go away from their studies and observance, and amongst them I do a lot of informal surveys of individual students, graduates of day schools and yeshivas, and some of them, there are some schools that half a day English and half secular and half a day Torah subjects, and it's like the jack of all trades, the master of none. The jack of all trades, the master of none. And usually these schools try to dawn us to get these kids to go to Israel for a year study. And when they come back, they're all full of I want to learn, because they never got that. They never got a in-depth appreciation of all the Torah divisions, whether it be Chumash, halacha, ideology, very important, because or Talmud. These are all important subjects, but now they're gung ho. We want to learn, and that's what they did when they came back, because they never got it. Or they never got an in-depth study of that subject matter, and that's half a day day school, half a day Torah, and half a day secular. Now, how much can they cover? And you got to march for parades. You got to go out and to the assemblies, and you got to go graduation. Killing time, bang, 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 the whole day for the kindergarten graduation, for elementary school, for high school, valedictorian, all that they got to sit through instead of learning. You don't have that in the Haredi schools. They're learning from the get-go. Oh yeah, I was speaking to a Rebbe, a Haredi Rebbe, and he says, yeah, we lose, maybe 15% of the students leave the fold, but they have such numbers, their families are so large that it doesn't make an impact. You have these Haredis that are setting up these organizations like Footsteps, right? They meet and they socialize and they have happy hour, things like that. But, it's like Hiskiyahu. He gave them the best education, but they didn't have that soul strength, appreciation that God gives. God gives the Spirit into His people, and the words He puts in His mouth from now forevermore. Sometimes that Spirit is very, very small, and they needs encouragement. They have to have resource rooms. They have to keep on trying, and that's what it is. Some are late bloomers, so that's what I find, that here you have. We spoke about Kings, right? We spoke about the Kings, the Book of Kings, briefly, but it's all compact. So you know, I had a fellow on here last time. He was a little embittered because he learned from all day in Yeshiva, and the secular subject was from 5 to 7 p.m., 5 to 7. But when he was here, that's on the last tape, 470, you know. When he was here, he could rattle off psukim, all kinds of divrei Torah. He, like a snap of your fingers, he knew exactly what it was. He could quote all the sentences that was under discussion. But he was a little embittered. He wanted to have a wide variety of subject matter that he could choose from. And the fact of the matter is, after he graduated, being you have such a great knowledge of the Torah subjects, when you have a secular subject, you know, it's a snap. 1, 2, 3. He became an attorney. He's an attorney, a practicing attorney, and he's very knowledgeable in Torah. He has to thank his bottom that his parents were able to send him to a school that was so committed to having teachers learn with their children, students. Now, I want to tell you, you know, we spoke about Gaza, and it's so important, the land. What do Jews need land for? If it's peace, we'll give it up to you. We don't need land. All we need is a little parcel. But the point is, all these lands were given to the Jewish people. God made a covenant. He made a covenant with Abraham. The covenant between the pieces. They slaughtered the 3 heifers, 3 goats, 3 lambs, and a pigeon and a turtle dove they did not slaughter. And what is that to show us? That the smoking furnace smoke and the fire will someday be in that land when we have our temple. He told it to Avram in this picturesque form that we will offer to our God a portion of what we came by, and to show thanks that we should together thank God and partake of a meal, so to speak. And where do we have that? In Abraham, covenant between the pieces. That's in 13, chapter 13. You have to write these down in Genesis. Chapter 13. He saw that Abraham set up altars, 12:8, he set up altars, right? Write it down, Genesis 12:8. And he didn't offer anything, there was no temple, there were bamos, but he offered speech. He spoke to the people about the oneness, the uniqueness of God. And there is one God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And 13, and Genesis 13:4 did the same thing, 26:33. 21:33. All of these places where he pitched his tent and he went and he spoke about the oneness of God and for the people to live by the precepts of the Torah. Precepts of the Torah. That was Abraham. Now, in Isaac, in Genesis 26:1, there was a famine. There was a famine in the land. And he said to Isaac, do not go to Egypt, but stay in the land of Israel, live there, dwell there, and work the land. And he went to Gerar, where Rabbi Millers was the king, and Ficho was his chief of staff. That was Abraham, and the same thing with Isaac. We're to work the land and live there. And he told them, to Abraham, it said 13:8, all the chapter 13:8, all the land that you see, I will give you. And with Isaac, again, 26:1 to 26:4. Go down, work the land, live there, dwell there, and be prosperous. And that's what he was. He was prosperous. And Rabbi Millers drove him out and said, you're taking over everything, just like in Poland and Europe, become too wealthy, drive you out. It's our land. But in Gerar, which is Philistine, it is divinely given to God. And it says over there in 26:5, because Abraham figured out the Torah by himself, through observation and rationalization, he figured out the Torah, the oral Torah, and he lived by those precepts. That's why I'm giving you the land. That's 26:5. 26:1 to 4, God told him to stay in the land. Stay in the land, work it, and dwell there. And that's what he did. And as a reward, he gave them that land. He told Isaac, all the land that you see will belong to you and your posterity. That's Isaac. And in Jacob, he said in 48:5, chapter 40, in Bereshit, Genesis 48:5, he says, Jacob's talking to Joseph, and he said, this land of Canaan has been given to us by God. And where was that given? When Jacob had a dream, and God came, appeared to him in a dream with the ladders, Jacob's ladders. In that dream, he said, I will give you all the land around you. And that's what he did. That's what he did. Ufaratzto, Yama, Kedmo, Safona, Vinegbo. Ufaratzto, Yama, Kedmo, Safona, Vinegbo. Faratzo, you should spread out in the lands that I gave you. So what do we have? So we spoke about Gaza. So the problem is some people don't have that level of spirituality. Now I can tell you people that to some extent yours truly, like I didn't have any formal day school education, but you know, I just loved it, and I have a Yetzer Hara that keeps me away from a lot of things, but I loved it, and to the extent that I want to give it over. I want to give over whatever I learned to my fellow Jews who are in need, and the synagogue has to cut out their time and make room for learning. It's not just Kiddush. There's a Mishlei proverb that says Whoever does not give ear to my Torah, his prayer is an abomination, his prayer is evil. Whoever does not give ear to my Torah, his prayer is an abomination. What does it say over? Mishlei has such beautiful thoughts. It says over there, arrogance precedes suffering. Arrogance precedes suffering. What do we have by Yosef HaTzadik? He was a little bit arrogant, you know. He said, you know, you're going to bow down to me, the stars and the moon and the sun. You know, a little arrogant. So that precedes tribulation, suffering. And he had to suffer for being haughty and arrogant. You know, that's in Mishlei, in Proverbs, right? In Proverbs, that's it. And let's see what else is. Okay, I can't remember everything. But here we have we have to learn Talmud time. Hey, it's time for Talmud time. We love to learn. We love to learn Talmud. What does it say? The song goes, Olam haba is a good zach. Learning Torah is a better zach. Learning Torah, da da da. Learning Torah is a good zach. So that's what we do. We learn Torah. We don't have to go fast. We don't have to go fast. Yeah, you know, this is an art scrolls. Linear Torah, everything's in English. What do? We have, we're learning the first Gemara. The first Gemara, and what does it deal with? It deals with the Shema Yisrael prayer. What is the Shema Yisrael prayer? Shema, hear, O Israel. Hear, O Israel, that there is one God. That's what Shema tells us. There is one God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. One God, and it is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the one God. And the other thing is, live by the precepts of the Torah. I put too many things together here. Where is this thing? Here. Shema, belief in one God, and live by the precepts of the Torah. Live by the precepts of the Torah. So, well, you know, when I got to this place here, the Hechel Torah, Hechel Tzadi Baruch, Rabbi London Brothers in 1959. First thing they didn't have Watchgo, but they had Gemara. And the first Gemara is, open up your books. I told you it's $10. You get them any bookstore. $10, get the first parak, and you can go little by little. You get a kasha and a teretz, and it's soul food. You know, when you give your parent, a loved one, a gift, and they enjoy it, you love it. You love that they enjoy it. What is that enjoyment? What organ is that? Is it your heart, your lungs, your liver? It's your soul. That's your soul. And the soul, that soul food, when you do a good deed, or you get a good kasha. And that's what we have. We're studying, we're learning the Gemara. I hope you're following through, because we're spending time on the first three words. This is what the Jewish people did and our forefathers did. We learned the Torah and the oral Torah. It says, I'm going to say it in Aramaic and then in English, from when to when do we learn to say the Shema Yisrael in the evening? What are the parameters of learning the Shema Yisrael prayer of the evening? What are the parameters? What are the concepts of learning the Shema Yisrael prayer? It's like 4 to 10. What's the time frame? So what the answer is? Nothing. It's nothing black and white. You have to think about everything. That's why when you go to school, you should go a full day of learning Torah, and then the English will be a snap. So what's the answer? Mishal shekohanim nechnosim le'echel b'truma. From the time that kohanim enter to eat their truma. Oh, I want to know an answer. What are the time frames? Oh, okay. What it is really the Gemara says when the 3 stars come out. When the 3 stars come out in the evening, we know by calendar when the 3 stars will come out. When they come out, that's the sign of saying the Shema Yisrael. Everybody agrees to that. And all they didn't throw anybody's point of view out. All the yeshivas came to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi when he wrote down the Mishnah and the Gemara. 500 years later, Rav Asa wrote the Gemara. He put down, what did he put down? Put down everyone's view. But everyone agrees that the onset parameter is from when the 3 stars come out. That's when you can begin. You can say the Shema Yisrael prayer all day long. But when you begin to get credit for it is when the 3 stars come out until the end of the first watch, according to one Mandiyom. When is the end of the first watch? They had watches during the night. Say that the night was 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., 12 hours. They had 3 shifts. And the first shift watch came at 9, 6 to, it's every 3 hours, so it came at 9 o'clock. At the end of the first watch, that's when the end parameter of saying Shema Yisrael of the evening begins and where you get credit for it, by the end of the first watch. Another one, most of the rabbis say until midnight. Right? Not 9 p.m., but till midnight. And the third one, the third opinion says to Al Shachar, until the morning star comes out, which I believe is like 72 minutes before sunrise. So you have 3 different opinions, right? But the majority of opinion is that the most rabbis hold that, and how we rule by is until midnight. But here's a rabbi that his sons went to a party, and they came back very late, and they said, after midnight, and they said, can we read the Shema? Can we say the Shema Yisrael of the evening? And the rabbi said, yes, certainly. Yeah, but you still get credit for it. But the rabbi said till 12 o'clock. Yes, they said to 12 o'clock in order to keep you far away from sin. What do you mean? Keep you far away from sin. You say, well, listen, I have till 12 o'clock, so I still got 15 minutes, I'm going to take a snooze over. And what happened, you wound up after 12. So that's to keep you far away from sin. So actually, you can read it all the way till the morning star comes up, right? So I gave you a lot of Torah there. You have to review it, review, so it becomes part of you. Review you, right? So that's Talmud time. It's very important to learn Talmud, and that's Talmud time. And what do we have? We have, God. God came with us in a. God is with us when we put on the tefillin, when we wrap the tefillin out, like it says in the Shema Yisrael prayer. Why is that? Because Shaddai, God's name, is always with us. How so? Because in the tefillin is engraved the letter Shin. See, I don't know if you can You can see that. But the letter Shin is in the tefillin, right? The letter Shin is engraved in the tefillin. Shin. And Daled is on the back of the tefillin. There's a Daled. Daled, you know, a Daled printed Daled. A Daled, that's Shad. And the Yud completing the name of God is over here in the hand tefillin that is right here, and this is a Yud that goes next to the bottom and next to your heart. So it's Shaddai. God is always with you, and what does it say? God is always with you, or Shaddai. God is always with you, Shaddai, and that's what it says in 28:10, that God is always with you especially when you put on the tefillin, because God is with you, because you have the name of God written on the tefillin, right? So that's important, and it says over there in Deuteronomy chapter 28:10 that God, all the nations will fear you. 28:10, 28:9. It's 28:8, 9, and 10 in Deuteronomy. It says over there, walk in the ways of God, observe all the commandments, and God will be with you, and the nations will have awe and fear of you. Look it up. Chapter 28 in Deuteronomy, chapter 28, 8, 9, and 10. 8, 9, and 10. So what else do we have to talk about? Oh, we got a lot to talk about. Maybe I'd like to have a co-host so that we can get together and do something back and forth. May be better. But here we have. Here we have. Oh boy, I dropped it. Here we have anti-Semitism right out in the open. It's like reminiscent of Germany. You know, they blockaded, they stood in front of the Jewish-owned stores. Here, this is the first step. He's walking down the street. Get rid of the Jews. Jews control the USA. They control everything. But that's how they did in Germany. And you see what happened in Germany. Even though you were loyal citizens and fought for your motherland, wherever you happen to be, the U.S. Army, you gave your lives, and wherever you were, you fought for the man that you were a citizen of. You were in exile. And here's a picture of the Jews of Germany in World War I celebrating Hanukkah, where they all came together and kept the practice. But who would ever know that these same Jews were later gassed and murdered by the Nazis, by the Germans, and they keep on crying crocodile tears. But they should try all these killers, these German killers in Abstentia. They knew who went to these Einsatzgruppe. They have good records of how these Einsatzgruppe went around. And went around the small towns, murdered the Jews right on the spot. In Abstentia, Germany, look them up and make a museum of all these, your forefathers, and who served in these Einsatzgruppe, and who threw the canisters into the gas chambers, and who tortured the Jews in the concentration camps. Let them make a list of them. We don't need your crocodile tears, because they're not going. The next generation ain't going to remember that. Make a monument to who were the killers and the murderers of our brothers and sisters. What do we have here? Remember at Babi Yar. Where was that? In Kiev, Ukraine. They were fighting the Russians. Here they are, Babi Yar. Who were the Germans that were in that murderous camp where thousands were killed, every machine gun, men, women, and children, where the moans were heard all over the place for days? Where they should be tried, brought to justice. We don't know you're crying. Do something. Tell them who were the murderers. Yeah, tell us who the murderers were. And we have another anti-Semite in wolf and sheep's clothing that he wants to divide the God-given land into two countries. Anything to weaken the Jewish people. Whatever he can do, he'll try it. He's a wolf. Yeah. So Babi Yar. So that's Biden. And so what I urge all my friends out there to vote Republican. Donald Trump, Nikki Haley, any Republican candidate, and let Biden concern himself with the dozens of Indian tribes that were in America, and he took their land from them. Dozens of tribes throughout the country, and he shuts them off by giving them a casino or a reservation where they can drink themselves to death. Let him concern about honesty and give them a fair deal, and not worry about Israel and its people, the God-given people. Yeah, we have to. Yeah, so you have to. Look, whatever it is, you got to vote Republican, unless there's some of these great people like Lindsey Graham or what have you in some of the other areas. But basically, it's Nikki Haley, Donald Trump, and try our best to live according to the precepts of the Torah. So I gave you a lot to look at and to study and to look up. And remember the famous words of Hillel. If I am not for myself, who will be for me? And if I am only for myself, what am I? If not now, when? And we have evil inclinations tearing us away from doing things that are important of learning Torah. and not wasting time. So with that in mind, I want to wish you a God blessing. Again, this was recorded in Parshas Vayechi, where Jacob gives the blessings to the tribes. Reuven, he did a dastardly act going up and moving his father's bed. Shimon and Levi, they wounded the ox. He wanted to kill him, ox being Yosef. Shimon Levi. Yehuda, he was fearful of the deed he did with Tamar, but God forgave him for that. And you have God, and God is and Usher. God is a troop that returns on the heels. It will come back to the other side of the Jordan and be by itself after helping the Jews in the land of Canaan. Usher will have oil from the olives. He'd be successful. Zevulun and Zevulun will work and support the tribes. Well, Issachar on his broad shoulders will carry the teachings of the Torah, so forth and so on. Naphtali ayala shalucha, the hind let loose. He has good, pleasant savings, pleasant teachings, pleasant verses. Okay, that's enough for now. See you again. You got to review this. You have to review it and give it to a friend. Give it to a friend.